Welcome to Part 2 of Introduction to Billing and Accounting. My name is Karen Schwartz, the founder of Time & Sense Consultants and an associate of 3545 Consulting Global. The topic for this section is Billing Basics. We will be discussing what you should think about as you start the billing process and how to create successful bills.
While there are things that can make it easier, the truth is there are no magic wands that make the creation of a successful bill simple. It takes a lot of work to create and send a bill to a client. For starters, you must properly capture all the time and expenses that you want to bill for. You also must make the bill easy for the client to understand. If you don't, you will waste unbillable time responding to questions about the bill or have more difficulty collecting from your clients. While you may be able to decide how clients will be billed and what the bill looks like, and have it the same for all clients, that's not always the best solution. Clients may have unique needs, and if you are dealing with a large client, you may have to bill them in a specific way. Please note that while I will use the words bill and invoice interchangeably, they are different from a statement. A bill or invoice is used to indicate a listing of what the client owes. While a bill may show the last balance and payment, it will not show payment and invoice history. We will refer to a statement if we want to talk about a listing of invoices created and payments made against the invoices. The detail of the invoices is not included on the statement. What makes a bill a successful bill? A successful bill is one that gets paid promptly. There are a lot of things you need to think about when you start your billing process for each client. This slide shows some of the items that may need to be shown on your client bill. In the sessions of this course, we will be discussing all of these concepts, as well as the ones on the following two slides. While some of these concepts may seem obvious, there may be more to them than you think at first glance. For some firms, even the decision of what type of paper and envelopes to use and whether or not to print bills on letterhead can generate a significant discussion. In addition to what information you will show on the invoice, you have to think about how you will capture time and expenses, what you will capture as opposed to what you will bill for, and how you will charge for time and expenses. Other factors to consider are whether or not you will charge interest, who will be involved in the billing process, who will enter time and expenses, and what security is needed to protect information but to accomplish the workflow you choose. Depending on your clients, you may need split billing, consolidated billing, or electronic billing. You will also need to consider how you need to set up your billing system to get the information you need to support how you pay the people in your firm. You'll also want to think about what type of reports you need to understand how your firm is doing. By thinking through the questions before you start, you can save time and money because you will have the information you need in the form you need it, and your clients will understand what they owe. In school many years ago, I learned about the 5 W's, sometimes known as the 5 W's and 1 H or 6 W's. This is a basic concept in information gathering and presentation. When it comes to billing, we will answer the checklist of 6 questions, the 6 W's. The first 3 questions we will need to answer regarding our billing are: who do we bill, what is billed, and at what rate, and when do we bill? We will discuss each of these in more detail in a moment. The other 3 W's are: where is the bill sent, why are we billing, and how do we bill? Each of the 6 questions has a number of things to think about. The more you ask these questions and think about the answers before you start the billing process, the easier it will be for you to create the bills you need. Remember, the answers to these questions may change over time. This could be because the nature of your practice changes. Different practice areas have different needs. The answers could also change because you choose to change them, or because of client demand. You should periodically go back over this list and think about whether your answers have changed, and therefore, perhaps your bills need to change. In some practices, who do we bill will have an obvious answer. The client, of course. In other cases, the answer may be more varied. For an estate practice, the client may be the estate, but the bill will go to one or more trustees. If I handle family law, I may be counsel for the child, but the bill goes to the parents. In other cases, my client may be an individual who was injured, and the bill might go to the insurance company and the client. Knowing who you will be billing impacts not only where you send the bill, but also what is shown on the bill. You may need to limit your explanation of certain items on the bill to preserve client confidentiality. This can be more difficult if the bill has to go to more than one party. If the bill will be going to more than one person, you need to determine how each party is billed. Does each one pay a percentage of the bill? If so, does everyone see the full bill or only their share? Are there certain expenses or fees that are only charged to one of the parties? Is the bill the responsibility of one party but others get informational copies? Also, think about what payment information should be shown. For example, if both the mother and the father get copies of the bill and each is to pay a percentage, should they know whether the other party has paid their share of the bill? You need to know this to avoid giving out information that is confidential. The second question is, what is billed? There are generally two categories of charges on a bill: time charges and expenses. What you charge for and how you show it on the bill can vary by section and client. There are two types of fee charges: time charges and fixed fee arrangements. If you are charging for time, you need to decide what rate you will charge. This can vary based on type of law or what type of work is being done. You may charge for research at one rate, court time at another rate, and travel time at a third rate. Remember, however, that you need to be able to keep track of your time and assign the proper rate. If you make it too complex, you will not only make tracking time harder for you, but you may open yourself up for discussion with your clients about whether the work was really research or document preparation. Commonly, there will be different rates for attorneys and paralegals or staff. Attorney rates may vary based on experience. What your rate should be will be influenced by your geographical area and the type of law you practice. Fee arrangements come in many forms. The decision to charge a flat fee may be based on client expectations or your personal preferences. Even if you are charging a flat fee, there is value to tracking your time. This can help you determine the profitability of the flat fee and whether a particular type of law is worthwhile from a financial perspective. Flat fees can include a maximum flat fee, sometimes known as a not-to-exceed amount, an absolute amount, a minimum amount, and a contingency where you collect a percentage at the end of the case. Even if you agree to a flat fee, there may be some work that is done in addition to the flat fee. Of course, whatever your flat fee will be, it should be clearly defined in the attorney-client fee agreement. If you are working on an hourly basis, you need to determine what unit of time you will bill for. While most attorneys bill in 6-minute intervals, the choice is up to you and your market. 6-minute intervals are easy to track, as 6 minutes is 1/10 of an hour, so time can easily be stated as 0.1 for 6 minutes, 0.2 for 12 minutes, and so on. Furthermore, you may have time that you spend that you choose not to bill to the client. This non-billable time falls into two categories: no charge and do not bill. Generally, no charge refers to time that is charged to the client but shows on the client invoice. The client knows that you gave them something for free. This can be good customer relations. Do not bill refers to time that you do not show on the bill. Perhaps your associate spent 6 hours, but you feel it should have only taken 5. You may not want the client to know that it took 6 hours, so you only show a charge of 5 hours on the bill. Tracking no charge and do not bill time is important for measuring the profitability of the people in the office. A person that works 10 hours of billable time is of course more profitable than someone that works the same 10 hours but only 8 hours is billable. Whether those 2 non-billable hours were productive depends on what they were spent on. If they were spent on administrative work, it's different than if they were spent on customer work that must be written off. These measurements can be important whether looking at an employee's time or your own time. Just like with time, the billing of expenses involves many aspects. First, you need to decide what you will charge for and how. Some firms charge for telephone calls, faxes, copying, and even postage to mail the bill. Other firms use a flat fee, usually a percentage of the fees, to cover the administrative costs. These costs, for which you do not specifically write a check, are called soft costs. While you write a check to the phone company or the post office, you do not do so for each individual line item, and the bill from the company generally does not tie to the specific customers. Other costs, generally referred to as hard costs, are usually charged directly to the client and are considered client reimbursable expenses. These are usually larger items where a specific payment is made that is clearly tied to the client. Hard costs would include things like a check to a marshal, court clerk, Federal Express, or a doctor to cover the cost of medical record copies. Once you know what you will charge for, you need to know how much you will charge. If you are charging for copies and faxes, what is the per-page price? If you will be charging for Federal Express, do you charge the actual amount, or is the markup added to cover administrative costs? Whatever you choose to do, make sure that it is explained to the clients and documented in your client agreement. If you choose not to bill for certain costs, you also have to decide if you will show the costs on the bill as no charge, or if you will just track them in your system but not show them on the bill. To the extent possible, I always recommend showing no charge fees and costs on the bill, as this reminds the client of what you are doing and shows value. The question, what is billed, also includes how the bill looks. It's important that the bill be easy for the client to read and understand. Clients won't pay the bill if they don't understand it, and they may call with questions about the bill, which is probably not how you really want to spend your time. Different client bills may include different levels of detail if your practice areas or client demand require it. To the extent possible, you should try to keep your bills consistent to make the billing process and review simpler. Whether you show rates, hours worked, who did the work, and detailed descriptions will depend on your clients and the practice areas you work in, as well as the type of billing. For example, with a flat fee invoice, you will probably not show hours and rates. Also, think about whether you want to show past balances and payments on the bill and how much detail you want to show regarding the client trust account. If your firm represents the same client on multiple matters, you also need to determine if you will create a single bill broken out by matter or multiple bills. This decision is usually greatly influenced by the client. Once you know what they want to see on the bill, do a draft and review it with some clients. Getting advice up front will save time later. With new clients, you might want to review a sample bill so that they are less likely to have questions. This can also have the added benefit of making clients feel that there is nothing you are trying to hide. Here's a sample bill that would probably cause a lot of questions for a client. Even for a flat fee, there should be some description of the matter being worked on. Also, I recommend not showing hours for a flat fee. Showing no hours worked and a fee of $2,500 Also, I recommend not showing hours for a flat fee. Showing no hours worked or even 1 hour worked and a fee of $2,500 may raise some eyebrows. This sample is a little bit better. Aside from a little nicer heading, there's a description of what was done and the hours are removed. Of course, this description is just a sample and probably not something you would use if you were charging $4,300. This bill shows more detail. The date and work done are shown, and the client funds or trust account activity is shown along with payment activity. Another style of invoice includes a cover page with a summary of the activity on the matter. The following pages show the detail of the work done and the expenses charged. This bill could be enhanced by including who did the work in a firm with multiple people working on the file. Including the names or initials can help the client understand why some work is done at one rate and other work at a different rate. While this is likely in your client agreement, it's easier for the client to see it right on the bill. This bill shows the detail of the work done and the payments. On the second page, we see the details of the client fund transactions and the new balance, giving the client a clear picture of their client funds account. Another style of bill is a paragraph description. The work done is grouped into paragraphs, usually based on who did the work, rather than each line item listed separately. You can show the hours, but the client will not know how much time was spent on each specific task. This final example shows detail of time and expenses, but doesn't total the time and expenses separately. In my opinion, this invoice looks a little too much like what the electrician or the plumber would provide, and I prefer something a little more formal. These sample invoices are not meant to show the perfect bill. They are merely examples to help you think about some of the options that are available. If you are already billing, think about what questions you are asked about your bills. This will tell you the areas you should be thinking about changing. Remember, you know what you are billing for. The important thing is to relate it to the client in a way that they will know what they are being billed for without having to ask. The next question is, when do we bill? There are many alternatives and different types of cases may require different answers. While generating bills when you need the money may work, especially if you have retainers that you can pull from, I generally recommend regular billing cycles, depending on the type of case. For hourly cases, you should bill monthly, preferably at a consistent time. Regular billing has several benefits with regard to your clients. First, the client knows when to expect the bill and can include it in their normal bill processing cycle. Also, regular billing keeps the client informed on a timely basis of the work done and the amounts owed. This provides opportunity to respond to questions before they become problems. If additional retainer is needed, the client will be aware in a timely manner. Finally, regular billing and the associated tracking lets you know if there's a problem with the client paying the bill. If necessary and allowable, you can stop work until the situation is resolved and before you invest more time and money. Even for contingency or estate matters that will not actually get paid until the end of the case, there is value to sending a regular bill. Bills can be an additional form of communication with the client and a way to keep them informed. The client will also see you are working on their case and may feel less need to call to check. Monthly billing is also the easiest to keep track of, and it's therefore easy to look at a report and see if anything was forgotten. Whatever method you use for determining the when, make sure you can track it and that clients understand. Without good tracking, it's easy to miss billing time and expenses until it's too late. I've seen too often the situation where billing was not done consistently and review was not done. When I look at the system, there may be thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in old time or expenses that could have been billed and wasn't. If the entries are old or the case is closed, this may be lost revenue. If your client has not paid but has no new activity, you can decide whether to send a bill or a statement recapping the prior transactions in total and what is currently owed. As important as billing timely is sending the bill to the right location. If the bill goes to the wrong place, at best it could take longer to get paid. At worst, it could cause problems with the client. Bills may be sent by regular mail or by email. If you choose to send by email, make sure the client gets the email, especially the first month, as sometimes emails end up in the junk mailbox. You should also check with your bar association, as bills may contain confidential information and there may be specific procedures you should follow. Consider using encryption for the email or the billing attachment if appropriate. Just remember, if it's complicated for the client, they are less likely to open the bill quickly, and you may then experience a delay in getting paid. Depending on the type of matter, the bill may need to go to multiple parties and perhaps be in different formats. This can range from pure copies to split billing between multiple parties. You might be mailing to one party and submitting via email or electronic billing to another party. To get paid promptly, you must be able to get the right bill to the right person and place. We've covered many of the points related to why we are billing as we talked about other topics. However, the concepts are worth repeating and summarizing in one location. The why is how we let clients know what we did. The better the client understands the bill, the more likely you are to get paid quickly. Try to avoid legal speak and abbreviations or acronyms in your bills, unless you are sure your client will understand the terminology. Think about the bills you get. If you have a question about the work your landscaper did, you might put the bill aside and wait until you speak with them before paying. Your clients behave the same way towards your bills. How do we bill takes us from start to finish. We need a process to make sure we are capturing time and expenses. We need a method to make sure the bills are generated and they are paid. A nonprofit that I work with has a bulletin that includes advertising. They were doing a good job of getting advertisers, but unfortunately they were not doing a good job of billing. Guess what? The advertisers weren't paying because they weren't getting billed, and the nonprofit needed the revenue. We implemented a billing process, and the advertising revenue was collected. Even if you send out bills, not all bills will be paid as promptly as you might like. It is important to track your receivables. Part of the billing process is following up with those who haven't paid. This is generally people's least favorite job, but it is important. If you don't follow up, you are likely to be losing money. You also need to look at how we will deliver the bill. While overnight delivery may be an expensive way to deliver a bill, there are times when it is appropriate. One of my clients offered a discount for payment within 5 days. The bills were sent by fax and Federal Express and were generally paid promptly because of the discount. The overnight mail charges were worthwhile for this business, and the rates charged took into account the fact that most clients would get the discount. Even if you don't use overnight mail regularly, there may be times when you choose to use this or some other method of sending bills that provides a tracking mechanism. There are a lot of elements that go into billing, all of which are important. Without cash coming in, your firm will have a hard time thriving and surviving. While collecting retainers may reduce the need to bill to get money from clients, billing is still important as a communication tool. Generally, you will also need to create a bill in order to show why you are moving the money from the IOLTA account to your operating account. Additionally, there will come a point in time where you will need to reconcile the retainer account. You may need more retainer, or you may need to provide some money back to the client. If you have been providing regular information, there will be fewer questions. Billing is the first step to getting paid. Thank you for joining Billing Basics. The next session will explore rates and flat fees in more detail and look at electronic billing. The billing and accounting options will look at software tools you can use to help you and what to look at when choosing software. The final session will look at things you can do to help you get paid more quickly.